Hi everyone, it's Julia and welcome back to my channel. I have another project using up your scraps and your little pieces of laces and trims or whatever you have laying around. I started doing this a couple months ago, and I've been putting them in my Etsy shop, and I'm filling an order today, so I thought I would turn the camera on and just show you how I make fabric ribbon from my scraps. I start with just a strip of muslin. I'll link everything down below that I'm using, but this is a primitive muslin by Moda. This is the color Pie Crust, and it has a variation of, it almost looks like a tea-dyed muslin. I'm cutting approximately 1 inch on this, and then I'm just going to rip it the full length of the muslin. I'm making 2 of these, so I'm going to be ripping 2 of them here. I have these in both I have them in earth tones, pinks and oranges, and also greens and blues. And this customer ordered 2 of them, one in the earth tone and one in the greens and blues. So I'm doing 2 of them today. Once I have my strips torn, I kind of take this initial fray off, and then I'm going to take this to my ironing board and just iron these nice and flat. This is my container of snippets, and I keep this right at my sewing machine, so when I'm doing a fabric collage I can just kind of draw things from it. But what I like to keep are interesting pieces. Like this is a great piece of fabric because it has a lot of letters and words on it, but nothing really, no direction to it and nothing that really makes sense, but it just adds interest. I love saving pieces of batik fabric because it's the same on both front and back, and I can twist them and do interesting things with that. Love any kind of little pieces of lace, so I keep that kind of thing. Ribbons. This one is a fabric with a musical score on it, so I love cutting pieces of that. Another piece of fabric that has feathers on it that I love. Another thing I do is when I'm sewing on a project, a muslin project, and I just cutting off little pieces, I save the pieces and stamp words on it. I do use my Distress Tim Holtz permanent mixed media ink palette for that. So it's permanent and it comes in 4 different colors. These are some of my favorite stamp sets, and again I'll link them down below, but Donna Downey has a couple that I really like, and same with Dina Wakley. They just make a really fun words that I can add to my creations. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to sort through this, pick out the elements that I want to add to my fabric ribbon, set my camera up at my sewing machine, and I'll be back. I'm about ready to set up at the sewing machine. I have my earth tone colored pile and my blues and my greens. As I'm creating these ribbons, if I need more I can add to it. But there was one more thing that I keep in my little snippet box that I wanted to show you, and that's this spool of tatting. I had purchased this a few years back at a flea market, and I've been kind of hoarding it, but I like to add little pieces of it to different little projects. It's just absolutely beautiful. Do any of you know how to tat, or have you ever tried it? I just kind of be interested in knowing. My aunt used to tat, and she had given me a shuttle when I was probably in middle school, and I just have never been able to really be able to do it, and I honestly think it is kind of a lost art. So just let me know. I'm gonna get set up at the sewing machine and I'll be right back. I'm going to be using this sulky variegated thread in blues and greens. I've decided to do the blues and green ribbon first. I have my embroidery foot on. I have my feed dogs dropped because I'm going to be doing the motion on this. It's free motion stitching. So I'm going to get this thread on. My bobbin thread is in, and it's just a regular white colored bobbin thread. Bobbin thread's a little bit thinner than top stitching thread. And let me get this on and I'll be right back. I have my first few pieces laid on my foundation piece, and I have all these little tidbits off on the side here in a pile, and so I'm going to be adding to it as I go down. Another little thing I wanted to mention is I'm going to be adding a lot of stitches in this, catching in all the little pieces, but also kind of doing a little bit of decorative swirly and just kind of going all over with my thread, and that's just part of the effect. When I get all the way down to the bottom, then I like to go all the way back up to the top of the ribbon, just filling in with some more stitches. And this part goes really fast because I'm not having to hold on to anything. I have both colors sewn on now. I've also pressed ironed them down a little bit just because they do get a little bit crinkled from the stitching. The last thing I do is some stamping on them. This is of course totally optional, but it just kind of adds a little finished touch to it. And I'm using permanent pigment ink pads for this. And super simple. I just go ahead and I just ink up, and then I just stamp right over the top. You can kind of see what that's doing to it. Then I take a tag. This is kind of how I package it. I take a tag and do the same stamping. And then I wrap it. And it just looks so pretty, all packaged up. Tuck it in. And then I stick it in one of the little Sally sleeves. And that's how they look. Now what do you do with this ribbon? I like to have it on hand because I like to add it to pillows. I stick them on in journals. I put little pieces of it maybe on zippered pouches. There's a lot of different projects that you can just kind of add them to. Now on the earth tone one, I'm using a script acrylic stamp. I'm not even putting it on, or a clear stamp, and I'm not even going to put it on my acrylic block. I'm just holding it like this. I'm using the Vintage Photo in my Distress permanent ink palette, and I'm just putting little pieces of it here and there on the background of this, similar to what I did to the blue one. And you can just kind of see it just faintly, but it really does add, you can kind of, it's right there. It does add a little bit. And then the tag, kind of do the same thing, just add a little bit of stamping on the background. And I start to wrap. I hope you enjoyed this quick little tutorial, and maybe it's given you some ideas on how you can use some of your little itty bitty scraps. Thanks so much. Bye.